Folks are filtering in. Hello to everyone who's just joining us. Thanks for coming. Where's everyone tuning in from?
Oregon,
Nice. Where in Oregon?
just outside of the capital, Salem.
Oh, cool. I'm in Los Angeles, but you can't tell because I look like I'm just in a purple cyberspace.
Purple zone.
Purple zone, the lavender zone.
Lavender
Yeah.
lane.
Mississippi.
Oh, yeah.
Mississippi, wow.
Hey, come back here. Up north.
Oh, yeah. We got our resident Canadian.
I was just gonna say Canadian.
We
Cool.
got Franco is from Oakland.
One of our volunteers is on.
Nice. We'd love to hear that. Well, we'll let you folks filter in for like one more minute and then we'll get things started.
Becky, is that our person?
And Augustus has been coming on Wednesdays.
Seen the name.
Nice. We love to see familiar faces. All right, Franco, I'm only not letting your AI person record because we have our own recording happening. So we're covered. Okay. All right, so I've pinned the folks from Ohio Lesbian Archives and I've pinned us from the Curve Foundation so that folks should be seeing just us five. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna get into it. Let's start. So hello, everyone, and welcome to Curve's Hidden Treasures with the Ohio Lesbian Archives. My name is Julia Rosenzweig, tuning in from unceded Tongva land, aka Los Angeles. I am the Archive and Outreach Manager for the Curve Foundation, and I'm honored to be facilitating this event with our friends from the Ohio Lesbian Archives. Please feel free, again, I already mentioned it, to throw a hello and where you are into the chat. Just a quick note that this event is being recorded, but only the presenters will be on view. Closed captioning is enabled and can be turned on by clicking on the three dots on the bottom of your screen that says more and then clicking captions. Tonight will be a virtual show and tell of archival Curve magazine materials housed at both institutions, with reflections from the founder, Franco Stevens, and discussion with the archivists who steward these materials. Each institution will also share a little bit about their organization's history. We hope to share behind the scenes stories, educate, and most importantly, enjoy being in community with you all. We will have a portion for audience questions towards the end of the event, and you can either save them until that time or put them in the chat so that I can write them down and they can be addressed during the appropriate time. In the meantime, we ask that you please mute yourselves during this event, but we encourage you to engage, throw things in the chat, react, comment, whatever you'd like in the chat. So without further ado, I will introduce our presenters. As mentioned before, my name is Julia. I am the Archive and Outreach Manager for the Curve Foundation, where I focus on stewarding the digital collection of Curve magazine and activating its cultural significance through community-centered programming. Prior to this position, I earned a master's in library science at Pratt Institute, managed the Lesbian Elders Oral History Project for LHA, and processed collections at the Brooklyn Museum. With me today are Franco Stevens, Phoebe Beiser, Nancy Urian, and Avery Plummer. Franco is the founder of Curve Magazine and co-founder of the Curve Foundation. She is a member of the NLGJA Association of LGBTQ+ Journalists Hall of Fame and has been awarded some of queer journalism's most respected awards. She has also served on the board of GLAAD, co-founded the San Francisco LGBT Center, and actively advocates for lesbian visibility. Phoebe is the co-founder of the Ohio Lesbian Archives, along with Victoria Ramstetter. After retiring from the Cincinnati Public Library, she taught writing classes at Women Writing for a Change, and then a friendship with a writer in New Delhi led to travels in India and The Buddha and the Bitch, which is the title of the book. After coming out in the 1970s, Vic and Phoebe vowed to help fight lesbian invisibility, which is a legacy we're continuing here today very proudly. Nancy has worked in public history museums, archives, and libraries. She began volunteering at the Ohio Lesbian Archives in 2014, joined their board in 2021. In 2017, she curated the exhibit Vibrant Kin, 50 Years of LGBTQ+ Cincinnati, based on the archive's collections. I wish I had gotten to see it. Avery is a board member and a volunteer for OLA, as well as a queer artist and writer working in Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, so now we'll get started with OLA's history and materials. Nancy, Phoebe, take it away.
All right. Um, so I'm going to start sharing the screen. We are practicing some creative microphoning tonight since we've got two folks in the same space. So I'm speaking, but you might hear my voice coming out of Phoebe's microphone.
You hear her okay?
Yeah, if you cannot hear me, please
yeah.
let me know. Okay, I'm going to share
Yeah.
a little presentation on sort of the history of Ohio Lesbian Archives, how we got started, where we've been. So I love to tell people that Ohio Lesbian Archives opened to the public in 1989, but really the project behind it goes back much further than that. So Phoebe and Vic, and Phoebe's here with us tonight. I had to share some pictures of them both sort of in the days of the early days. Actually, that would be before the archives, right? Because that's sort of the mid 80s, late 70s.
80s, it was 80s, I think, still.
Early 80s, maybe. And then a picture of them from our sort of grand opening in this space last year. Both of them are still very involved in the archives, and we're incredibly grateful to have them. And Phoebe will correct me if I get anything wrong on her own history here. But they were really active in Cincinnati's lesbian feminist community in the 70s, well, going back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Surviving the lesbian commune in Clifton. Actually, you had more than one lesbian commune house, right?
That's true. Only one really called it. The Dayton, Ohio one didn't really call it a commune, but it kind of was, because Margie put up a list of household duties that we must do every week. So there was a group thing, conscience, you could say, yes.
Absolutely. So they were really involved in the lesbian feminist community here in Cincinnati in the publication of Dinah, a newsletter that I'll talk much more about after talking about the archives a little bit. And you sort of had this consciousness of wanting to know more about lesbian history, women's history, LGBTQ history, as we might say now, and knowing that you had to sort of preserve the things that you were producing then, and research more about all of these histories. And I'm incredibly glad that they did. So Vic and Phoebe finally started the archive. The archive, we've found from Dinah records that it opened to the public September 7th, 1989. And they had, I love this picture of just all of the shelves, all of the boxes stacked up, many of which we are still using. Many of those
file cabinets look familiar.
We are still using in a much smaller space. I love this picture of Phoebe, at a table for the archives. And it might be a little difficult to see, but there's a poster on the front of the table that says items, the Ohio Lesbian Archives requests the following items. Number 1, money. Still true. Number 2, old journals, still true. Number 3, photographs, still true. 4, oral histories, also still true. Coming out stories, I mean, these are all still true.
Yeah.
And old pamphlets and flyers.
Oh yeah, plenty of
gives
those.
you a little bit of a taste of what you were collecting and what is now part of our collection. So our first home was a little room on the 3rd floor of the local feminist bookstore. So Crazy Ladies Bookstore, and we've got one of their original signs, one of the business's signs that we'll walk around and show a little bit. Crazy Ladies opened in 1979 in sort of what became the gay neighborhood of North Side here in Cincinnati. They had 2 separate rented locations. And then in 1989, it was a big deal that they were able to buy a building to become not just Crazy Ladies Bookstore, but Crazy Ladies Center. So they actually had a 3-story building in Northside that they were able to rent out space to local organizations. Stonewall Cincinnati was there for a while. They had space for groups to meet. So there was a Tuesday night lesbian support group that met there for many, many years. There was a group called Slightly Older Lesbians, which I think started at like 30.
It started at 30 and then it changed to 40 when they found enough 40 and over.
And in one of the rooms on the 3rd floor was Ohio Lesbian Archives. You told me you subsidized your rent by cleaning the hallways and the communal spaces. And
we called ourselves, just for fun, we called ourselves Sappho Sweepers, just to keep us going, vacuuming, 2nd and 3rd floor, making sure there was toilet paper in the restroom, nothing too much, but we paid dirt cheap. Our rent was like $55 or $65, something like that, to the building, because the gas and electric, it's a huge old building.
Yeah, it was a huge old building. Crazy Ladies was there until the early 2000s. Oh, I've got another Crazy Ladies picture of one of the bookmarks that they would give out.
Oh yeah.
Has a quote: "If a woman and it is woman with an O."
Yes.
Questions too many of society's values, she often is deemed crazy. In celebration of all the crazy ladies in our past, present, and future, Crazy Ladies Bookstore. So Crazy Ladies was an incredible community space and gathering place, held all kinds of events, activism, resources for many years. It closed down in about 2002. There was a collective that sort of tried to keep it running.
Yes, and then Women Writing for Change thought, well, we'll have a West Side campus, because were on the East Side, and they tried for a year or two, and it was a lot, it was a lot. So then they actually sold it. But the archives got to stay there. Since I was involved with Women Writing, I said, no. And there was room. And I said, but then I said, please don't throw anything away, papers away, board meeting, because we'll go through them, because the archives will probably want them. So that was good.
In fact, those records are right behind Phoebe's shoulder. You can see a green bin.
Maybe.
One of 3.
Maybe when you're done with
but 3 bins of records from Crazy Ladies Bookstore.
And can I just insert real quickly, was it this past spring? Chelsea and Oxford.
Oh yeah.
Yes, one of our volunteers, well, she was really a volunteer, but she became much more than a visiting researcher. Miami University, which is just up the road a little bit, hour away, not even. Chelsea was an honor student. She was doing an independent project, and she thought she was going to, she had come to visit, and I really said, somebody's got to do paper on Crazy Ladies someday. And so she took that on, but she went beyond that, because there are 3 huge bins. There's a lot of stuff, but they had a newsletter. That was some of it, and board meetings, board minutes. But one Sunday, she was coming on Sundays, and one day she said, Phoebe, I decided I'm going to write a 1-act play about crazy ladies. I kind of looked at her, are you crazy? I mean, that's crazy. I mean, because she only had like another 6 weeks of the project or something, I said, okay. And she's going to find actors and everything. And she did. And they put this play on, and she said, will we just read the script for the vibes? Does it seem like the vibe, boomer vibes, the vibes back then? Do I have the feel of the place? Which was very conscious of her. And so a bunch of us went to, she had 2 showings of the play, 3 up in Oxford. And it really was a boomer reunion. She did a really good job, and those actresses did too. So that was a really thrilling surprise, really, to have that 1-act play.
And I think is a really incredible example of sort of how people are starting to really use our collections and transform them into new ways to think about our history. So in 2006, the Crazy Ladies building was sold, and pretty quickly the archives had to find a new home. Our next physical home There we go.
There we go.
Was a lower level room in Clifton United Methodist Church, a welcoming church here in Cincinnati. They were very generous and gracious hosts to us, but we did not have enough space there, right? Now we were there for
17 years.
17 years.
17 years. We were just glad to have a space because we had the, and we
Yeah.
thought, well, basement's not wonderful, but it was better than typical, residential basement, but
Yeah.
still, we thought, well, we'll take it, And we were there 17
We
years.
were there 17 years. Still remained open, kept going. I think the pictures that I have up are actually a little bit flattering in terms of what the space looked like. The one on the right with several people in the room, probably that is the maximum number of people we could fit in the room. And we couldn't really have that many people actively working in the room at a time, or you can get behind them once somebody sat down at the table. But we sort of had enough committed people after a long time, and realizing that we had way more stuff than we could really access in that space, let alone fit in that space. And so it was a pretty long search for a new home that culminated in our third and current space in what is now a commercial building in the Over the Rhine neighborhood in Cincinnati. So it's much more downtown. It's more accessible in a lot of ways, more visible in a lot of ways. In fact, we even have our name on the door spelled out for anyone walking by to see, which is a point of pride.
Yes, they asked, do you want the initials or your name spelled out? I said, spelled out. I mean, waiting however many decades, Yes, we are out. Yes.
We are out, and we have space not just to access our collection, share it with people so that people can, come in, do the kinds of research like Phoebe talked about Chelsea doing, like Avery has done in the past, like we'll talk about another group doing with another collection Phoebe talks about, to have community events also. So we have a monthly book club now. We have a sort of bi-monthly or quarterly crafting club. We have some public events. The picture up right now is of what was our grand opening last October of 2023. So a little bit over a year ago. Still feels like we're moving into the space.
we wanted to wait till we had some these wonderful metal shelves. and we have more. They don't look like as many as we have, but anyway.
We're getting more in a couple
weeks. We are.
Very exciting because we still have about 38 boxes, and now more in Phoebe's car of books to put up. So we collect books, papers, sort of anything related
T-shirts.
to T-shirts.
I just got another donation of a whole grocery bag of T-shirts, a lot of Michigan Winds Music Festival, but not all, from someone that was a neighbor back in the 70s.
T-shirts, buttons, memorabilia, organizational records from things like Stonewall, Cincinnati, personal manuscript collections, really a wide variety of lesbian culture and LGBTQ communities in Cincinnati.
And I always say we're more, well, we have charitable status, 501c3 for being educational. We like to think we're educational, but I always say we're more than Ohio and we're more than lesbian, though it started with a focus on lesbian, and more than there's something else. More than archives, because when we moved in here, we could see more of the items we had that were packed away and stuff. So I always call these the museum shelves, because so many things, I don't know, what they call realia, what's the library term? Ephemera and stuff like that. Things that are hard to name.
So I want to start highlighting one of our collections that I mentioned a couple of times, and that is the Dinah newsletter. So Dinah was a newsletter of Cincinnati's lesbian community. I've got some pictures on the screen share, and then I also have a bunch of sort of covers to share that I'll try to hold up as we're going through. Dinah started publishing in the mid 1970s as what's on the screen right now, the Dinosaur newsletter. It had originally been a newsletter of the Ohio National Organization for Women Task Force on Sexuality and Lesbianism. So they made this acronym FOSSIL for Task Force on Sexuality and Lesbianism.
Good.
And then it sort of became from fossil, it became dinosaur. We need to do more with this little dinosaur wearing a necklace.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, to me, it's an incredible feat that and Phoebe was a big part of Dinah, was an editor of Dinah for many, many years.
About 79 to 80 till I was going to library school.
A long time.
And working at the same time, yeah.
To keep a newsletter running completely volunteer based. I mean, you took sort of some subscription money, but really just for printing costs. It's not like anybody was surviving monetarily on Dinah. It was an incredible local resource for events going on, for political discussions,
reviews of books
that
were just starting to be published.
Music, concerts, all kinds of so this one is a great one, and we'll show you. There's a trophy that goes along with this. This is a picture of one of the Dinah softball teams.
We'll go.
We'll walk around.
We'll go walk around and show you.
This is from 1979, and Dinah published for over 20 years. So from about 1975 to sort of the mid 1990s. Got our first masthead here, a few of the different issues. The one in the picture on the left is Pride in Cincinnati in 1978. And one of the big forces in the lesbian community at the time, who goes by Sequoia now, speaking at Pride in her fabulous tie-dye shirt. In the middle is actually one of my personal favorite issues of Dinah. That was from 1983. Now, even though it says Dinah's last issue, it was sort of always on the cusp of like, will we be able to make it? Will we be able to publish next month or next quarter? Because it was sort of...
Because we're down to, 4 people and not much money and
it was not Dinah's last issue, but it is an issue that contains the transcripts of several oral histories and interviews that they had done with women going back to really the 1920s and the 1940s about their experiences in Cincinnati. And then I also love the one on the right, the red one, because of the sort of list of the different types of things that it talked about: lesbian families, women's sports, arts and the image, local and national news, community profile, lesbian nuns.
Yes.
And then some issues of Dinah would have different kinds of community calendars, right? So a really great community resource.
And the obvious thing, but maybe, I have to remind myself as a modern lesbian, you have to remember there were no smartphones then where you could just whip out and take a selfie at a parade, or you had to rely on print media to find out, and flyers to find out what's going on. Where are the lesbians meeting, and where is there a concert, a famous lesbian singer coming to town, which for a time period there were were quite a, on the way east or west. We were on the way somewhere. Cincinnati was kind of in the middle on the way. So Dinah provided a lot, people needed it. They would come and collate it around and around the table at the YWCA downtown. It was always a Thursday night. Sometimes every 2 months, sometimes monthly, usually about bi-monthly.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about Dinah as a publication that
brings lesbians together and tells of events and safe spaces. Because I mean, it just reminds me so much of Curve because,
Mhm.
that was the whole point, to gather people together and let everyone know you're not alone. We have people, we have culture, we have places to go, things to do.
Yeah,
So I'm wondering,
definitely.
I'm wondering, Franco, if Dinah reminds you at all of Curve, if you'd heard about Dinah, and also vice versa. Phoebe, when was the first time that you had
Oh,
heard of Curve, and do you all have Curve
we
magazine in your
have we have
collection?
it back to the Deneuve days, when
Mhm.
Awesome.
we have a pretty we could check the drawer when we're going around. I just can't off the top of my head. But we have yeah, because you were one of the few. I mean, we were hungry for lesbian culture, news. So back to we have quite a few Deneuves, maybe all of them, I don't know. Deneuve and Curves, yeah. Yeah, probably all because there wasn't a lot of competition back in those early days. Yeah.
And sadly, there's still not a lot of competition.
Yeah, what
We
is
need
that?
more
Well,
of that. And thank you for laying the groundwork so that I could start Curve. And I happen to be at my sister's house, and she has some of these lovely old issues that she went out and bought, because this one still has the price tag on it. Look at that.
wow.
I know, pretty
How
cool.
much were you charging?
Back then, what was
$4.
$4?
I think it was
That's
always like $4.
that's neat.
Not $3.99 for this one, $4.
Yeah, make it easy. And the thing about Curve issues, for one, they were glossy, like regular, really smart, beautiful visually, and all kinds of information that you could put in if you had a coffee table, which sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. But you put out in your living room in the coffee table. It's like, hey, look, I mean, the Advocate was around for more gay men, some others, but that was it. So Curve, was like proud to have in your living room to show off. Maybe not to mom, but whoever.
Yeah, so what are the next materials that you all have to share with us today?
Go over
think-
to Jill's journal or at the
But-
end.
Yeah, maybe at the end you can.
And well, I do, if I can get to my photos here. I just went back to Macintosh after quite a few years. So why don't you talk a minute while because I have a couple pictures, but I can tell you too. But when we go around, oh, here's share. Oh, it might be right there. Okay, share. Where are the pictures? Uh,
So Phoebe's going to share a fantastic set of journals with you all. They're journals from one person. Her name
Here we
was
go.
Jill.
Here's photos.
Um,
Have to hit
and we
share.
feel really lucky to have her personal journals because she's not necessarily like a famous lesbian or a famous person. She's sort of an everyday person from the Cincinnati area.
Why am I not seeing share down here?
Maybe it's under
Did you see? Oh,
Ah.
it's under more. Okay, I learned something. So photos are up. Yep, just the Jill's journals part. Yeah, that's there. It's there.
There you go.
Can you see these four? I think there's just four. No, maybe not. Five. Well, I didn't see four. Okay, let me, this woman on the left is Jill. Her name, she passed away in 2011. Her name was Jill, and still is Jill Ellis. And she was 57 when she died, July 29th, 2011. She lived most of her adult life in Cincinnati. But she was from like the Waynesville area, about an hour north of Cincinnati. Anyway, I'm thinking maybe it's her mother and aunt, but I'm just making that, playing detective. Okay, where are we going? Here we go. Okay, so it started with this. I'll tell you, I mean, if random people, and then we just had we have some UC graduate women's studies students, and they are doing a big project researching, and they're actually reading. There are about 20 of these journals, and they split them up into 4 parts. Anyway, but I won't read this whole thing, but a friend of hers, David, now this is COVID time, August 4, 2020. And and here, connections, knowing people and people, not that many people might have, as many people didn't know about the archives then tucked away in the church basement in 2020. But so I won't read the whole thing, but David said, I was referred to you by Marianne Puntanay, who I met when caring for someone else who passed away. As it turned out, Marianne and I had several mutual friends, including Mary Goddick and Jill Ellis, both now deceased. Okay, they were part of his chosen family and attended Jewish holidays and special occasions with his family for many years. Okay, so I didn't know. I mean, I reread this with these UC University of Cincinnati students, because I said, wait a minute, maybe I can find that email from David it was 4 years ago, but it seems much longer actually. And I found it and I said, oh my God, listen to this. When Jill was in hospice, she asked me to put her journals and personal memorabilia in the right hands. When I discussed this with Marianne, we know each other from way back, she suggested I contact you, Phoebe, and the archives through Phoebe. Anyway, so you'll see these beautifully bound hand-printed journals for the most part, chronicle decades of her life. And he was friends with, I don't know, decades. She was a photographer. We don't have any pictures, but astrologer, that was her big thing. Astrologer, writer, and spiritual mentor. Her activism focused on civil rights, women's rights, gay rights, and the peace movement. I have been carrying these. So he approached, hey, do you guys want these? I have been carrying these journals around with me for the last 7 moves. Recently, I returned to Cincinnati, where I lived for 35 years. The journals have returned home. He said, let me know if you would be interested in seeing Jill's items. I like, yes, definitely. And we met, and it was COVID, so we met in Northside, the gay side, dyke side, where Crazy Ladies used to be. And he was familiar with Crazy Ladies. But we met and we moved her journals from the trunk of his car to the trunk of my car. And it came to the church basement. And they kind of these are really cool, and kind of couple of us kind of peeked at them, but there was so much going on, and the church basement was not conducive to spreading things out too much. Anyway, but they did kind of sit there. And then since we've been here in Over the Rhine downtown, I don't know who did that. Who do I have to thank, Avery or Nancy, that when we were having our open house and someone made a little sign, Jill's journals, and a little heart, Avery, the artist, I should have known. She's here somewhere. She'll be speaking next. But yeah, it says, and people say, oh, what are Jill's journals? It really calls attention. They're up on top of one of the many file cabinets, Jill's journals. And people say, oh, what are these journals? People love reading about your life, especially secrets. One of these, so here's, this is a especially beautiful one, a cosmic one for her, because she's very, what we used to call new age, very cosmic, and karma and astrology was in the I Ching, but especially astrologer. I didn't know her personally. I recognized her in that photo when one of the UC students said, oh my God, there's a picture in here. I said, that's Jill. I knew who she was. I don't know if she knows who I was, but I always thought I saw a flyer of hers doing astrology readings of charts and things at Crazy Ladies bookstore. And I took one home. I don't know if I'll ever find it, but I thought, I should go to her sometime and, find out about the coming future. But it was just on the list, like, well, someday maybe. And I never did, but I remembered her from astrology. Now, here's one thing. She's obsessed with Mary, Merry. She writes very neat. You will see when we walk you around. This is one of the messier pages, but it's some good stuff. So this kind of the theme here to keep in mind. True, I don't know why Truman Capote, she calls him True. Okay. All writers drink. And she did have a problem with alcoholism later on. She goes to a psychiatrist, her shrink, and, tries to cut down. And she did, to make money, she sold pot. That was one of her, and did astrology readings. She was quite the hippie, not gypsy, but hippie or new age gal, I'll say. Anyway, so all writers drink, maybe, but he's right. All writing is murder. She says, murder, oops. So Mary, they were friends, they became lovers on and off for more than 10 years. Mary, she says, Mary hates me because I tell too much. Don't all writers? Truman told too many secrets, so do I. I don't believe in secrets, no secrets, all is truth. So you can kind of tell what kind of a person she is. And it made some of her lovers, nervous. Of course, we're reading these after she died. And she did say in hospice to her friend David, please find a home for these, the right place for these journals. So she did want them read. She really did. She was an Aries, in case you wonder. I found out I was like, hey, there you go. Immersed. I mean, you just pick one up and randomly and read something and say, oh my God, and anyway, these UC grad students are getting some grades out of a project of working with her writing. They wanted someone they could kind of go throughout quite a few years. And in this, we have, 20 journals, 80s and basically the 80s and 90s with some gaps. I just want to tell you a few things here that stood out. Oh, so yeah, so Mary was the big one, but she had a lot of lovers and partners and friends and lovers, The truth is, in the present, Mary and I have very mixed feelings about one another. Ever happened to you? Yeah. We do better when we don't spend much time together. Then she says, very poetically, I have put away things of the heart for the moment. Whoa, not too many moments, so you'll see by a month later. So yes, one of the students was here yesterday actually. And I said, tell me some tidbits, because I didn't have time to read as many, more than a few of them. And so I was told this. So this is kind of, you can get, there are no words off bounds here, right? Okay.
No
Okay,
words off
now
bound, but we are running a little tight on time, so we
okay.
might have to transition to the curved
Okay,
materials in like a
I'll
minute
read.
or two.
I'll just tell you this and stop. Anyway, you get the idea. So one of the students told me, Mary and Jill are dating. Jill and Vaden are dating. Vaden and Mary are dating. They dated each other's exes for a time. And so Jill wrote, quote, my cunt throbs. Let's see, but whom does it throb for? What a funny little triangle we have. So I'll stop with that. That's one of the more juicy, so to speak, juicy parts of the journal. Yeah. So thank you for listening. Get a
I am
feel for
happy to
Jill.
I'm happy to end on that point because
Yes, that seemed like a
who
good
hasn't
place.
wondered that every now and
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
Well, I said it before we let attendees into the room, but I think that one of the most wonderful things about community archives is the fact that we have these documents of normal people, right? People who haven't been documented in mainstream culture or haven't been documented because they haven't been a famous poet, etc., but are equally important, right?
right.
So with that, we'll go into some curved materials. And we can jump back and forth. Phoebe, Nancy, Avery, if you all have any anecdotes that have to do with these things, we can always talk about that. I know we have one material that we'd like to show based off of some of these materials. But before we go into some materials, I just wanted to give like a brief overview of curve history. I won't make it too long. Mainly I just wanted to show this is the very first issue of Deneuve, which was the precursor title to Curve magazine. And I think that it's basically, I can't put it any better than Franco's first editor's note. So I'll just do a brief reading of it. San Francisco, a city where I could finally find the social life my lifestyle was lacking. I arrived in the Bay Area 4 years ago from Washington, D.C., full of hope, full of excitement, full of questions. I immediately went to the nearest bookstore in search of a magazine that might point me in the right direction, a handy little guide to the city's lesbian hotspots and hangouts. To my surprise and dismay, I was informed no such literature was in print. In shop after shop, I asked the same thing, but unfortunately to no avail. Soon I began to find answers to some of the questions that plagued my early SF days, but still I longed for a magazine designed especially for the gay women in San Francisco. A magazine dedicated to lesbian news and politics, arts and entertainment, love, sex, and friendship. I got a job at a Different Light bookstore in the Castro, and I soon discovered I wasn't the only one with this need. Quite often, women would come into the shop looking for the magazine that didn't exist, and I began to realize it was time to stop griping about the lack of the magazine and begin to create one. So that's just how I wanted to start off what Curve Magazine is, because I think that Franco did a great job realizing that future. So in the end, there are 30 years of Curve and Deneuve magazine, showcasing lesbian art, culture, entertainment, all sorts of things, family values. This is all about lesbian parental rights and rights in the 90s. We have the March on Washington. It's just, there's so much history in this archive, and I know I'm proud to steward it. And I think this, by the way, I'll drop this in the chat right now. This is our archive. It is free and accessible for everyone. But the things that I wanted to highlight were more Ohio based because we're with our friends from the Ohio Lesbian Archives. So really what I wanted to start off with was Curve was known to do some tours across the United States, which were very exciting, and I wish I could have gone on them myself. So I don't know how many had happened before this. I think maybe only one, but Franco can correct me. There was Curve's 1990. Okay, so there was one before that. This is Curve's 1995, yeah, Northern tour. And there were so many things that happened here. Let's go forward in. But one of the places that they went to was Ohio, and it turns out that Curve stopped in at the Ohio Lesbian Archives and saw what was going on. And I believe there's Phoebe with the Labris right there, and we do have the Labris. Let's see. There, if you go up to Nancy's little image, there is the Labris was in there. And Phoebe, you had a really fun story about this Labris and its history, if you wanted to share it.
Yeah, it was at a march. A carload of us went to DC for a march. I believe it was the Women's Pentagon Action in the early 80s. I could be wrong, but I think it was. And so I brought this Labris as a symbol of Amazons and strong women. And I was carrying it. It was kind of crazy. It wasn't, I don't know how many miles it was, but I was much younger. But I was carrying this Labris. This cop on a motorcycle came up to me and said, "Lady," something like, "Ma'am," or "Lady, you can't carry that. You can't have that here." I said, "It's not meant as a weapon." I said, "Well," I think I said, "Why?" I said, "It's symbolic." He said, "Well, you can't." And so this lesbian, I'm sure, with a truck appeared close by and said, I'll take it and keep it." And with however many thousands of people were there, after it was over, her truck, and she found me and my group and gave the Labris back. I mean, it's amazing. I thought I might never see the Labris again, but somehow she knew she needed to get back to Cincinnati.
It was a lesbian pole. The magnetic.
Yeah, must be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, Franco, if you have any memories or anything about this tour, if you were there, and what you remembered about
I was
Ohio.
there.
Oh yeah.
I was there.
How was the Ohio lesbian scene in 1995?
It was actually great. And we also went back, we made so many connections during that first trip there that we went back for Pride to Cincinnati a few times, and Cleveland as well. And, looking at this photo, and I see in the middle here, I see Phoebe and Nick, which is great. And then I see what looks like a very young Kate Clinton on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Very young.
And then I had forgotten about this photo on the right. Jerry, who's in the middle, I believe I just saw her at one of our Houston events, which just blows my mind.
No way.
But I could be wrong. And then scroll down a little bit up so I can see the top photos.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Cleveland.
yeah.
Wow, Philadelphia.
Yeah, this top left one was in Cleveland. And
See if there's any other
I
ones up
think
here.
this is P-Town.
P-Town, P-Town, P-Town.
So Franco, I remember
Yes.
the magazine said, we're going to be going, kind of my neighborhood. Yeah. I think you mentioned here a couple cities we're definitely going to, and one was Columbus, or maybe it was Cleveland. I thought Columbus. And if we should visit your town, contact us.
Uh-huh.
So at that time we were so lucky. We had Crazy Lace bookstore. Next door was a rented Wild Iris women's coffee house. Of
We
course,
went to both.
yeah. And a little further down the street we called it the Lesbian Bar, but Donna Smith and her partner who owned it, the lesbian couple that owned it, said it's for the neighborhood. Anybody that can handle it.
Mhm.
She had to kick some guys out that couldn't handle a bunch of lesbians there. But we had the bookstore, the coffee house, and the bar. And I said, we have all these in the same block. It'd be worth a trip to dip down to Cincinnati. And you guys came. It's like, wow. At a panel, and you gave issues away. I think you had an editor and a photographer. I know you had a photographer with you. Well, obviously.
Mhm. You are
And
correct.
maybe
We had
an
an editor and a
editor
photographer.
and you. Yeah, three of you. Yeah.
Mhm.
We found you places to stay. It was very exciting. Yeah.
Thanks for letting me sleep on your sofa. I appreciate that.
It wasn't mine, but it was around the corner from my house, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
And I love here that you can get a glimpse of, if you just open up the archive and look at any page, it'll give you a snapshot of what was going on in our community at that time. It's really like kind of a mind-blowing trip down memory lane to just be able to go, what were the issues we were facing right there? What are the celebrations we were enjoying? What were the commonalities? What was the fashion? What music was in style for our community back then?
Right. That goes into my next one, actually, really seamlessly. The next one was from October 2007. So that's 11 years after the first clip that we saw. And it just is following Jennifer Corday, who was an alt musician during the time, as she documented a tour that she did. And she was in Ohio for kind of a long time and writes about how she went to her first gig at Bullfish's, the lesbian bar. And bartender Sarah, who was the bomb and rocked the house before crashing with her friends. And then going to Dirty Jack's and meeting a team of roller derby girls and checking out the nightclub Adonis. And it is just so crazy because, I see Phoebe and Nancy, nodding their heads, being like, yes, yes, yes. But there are multiple places in Curve where these things are mentioned. So like, over here, we're talking about, Adonis and the Yada Club again. And that is 2009, 2 years later. And then even in 2015, we're talking about visiting Columbus, Ohio, and, not the same bars, but different bars. And I've always just really seen, as a person who goes through the Curve archive often, one of the things that I find most valuable for Curve was it being a resource of places that you can go. And I found that most of the Ohio related materials in the Curve archive were about bars and where you could go. And I just thought that was so interesting. So this one, she's going down, it's 77 is where, sorry if this gives anybody motion sickness. As I scroll, yeah, here she is again. And she's just talking about hanging out in Ohio. And I think it is just so wonderful.
The local lesbian bar owned by Donna. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Who's always grumpy,
but somehow adorable.
Right next to the P standing up.
Exactly. Phoebe, do you have any recollections of these bars? Well, and do you have any materials of them in your archive?
Bullfishes, Donna and her partner, she's Alinda, I think. Donna was a Taurus, and Alinda, well, she still is. And Alinda is a Pisces. So they just the name. So the Taurus, bull, and the fishes, the Pisces, bullfishes is how they came up with that name.
That's such a lesbian way to name something.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but it was just so neat to have in, and we knew, I mean, Donna had been like the most famous lesbian softball coach. I mean, there were others. Mary Ann Puntanay was one. I didn't go too much. I remember the Donna days. I think Mary Ann was a little younger. She became one afterwards in the local community, little community, women's softball. Yeah, so that was cool. So she was a coach, but then they decided to do this as a business. Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Definitely has.
Let's see. I'm gonna show some other things. Oh, here's another one
Nice.
actually. I think this is my last material to
Mm.
show before we maybe go into some. I mean, and again, it's more of 2013, so still covering what's hot in Cleveland, and we're talking about the gay games. And I think that that was probably a very proud moment in Cleveland history, is what I'm assuming. Because I think it was the ninth gay games. And for those who I'm sure everyone knows, I don't know if I actually am the right person to talk about the gay games because I'm not an expert. But that was the last thing I had to talk about that was in Curve Magazine for Ohio. So I'd like to open it up to questions because I know we have some people who are from Ohio or not from Ohio, but regardless would like to learn some more about the histories that we were talking about tonight. So let's see. I know there was one in the chat. Let's see. The question in the chat. Oh, great. The question is from Joan, saying, were there other bookstores in the 1970s besides Crazy Ladies to find lesbian and feminist materials?
In the 70s, not that I know of. Later years, there was one in Columbus and one in Bloomington, which is 2 hours, an hour and a half up the road, and Bloomington, Indiana, which is a couple hours west. Again, one was I have to think of the name. Dreams, and I'll have to think about that. I'm in my 70s. It takes a little longer to micro. Yeah, I might think of them while we're still on here. But yeah, and actually they folded and gave the archives some of their like one of them, the little box of their most important records. And the Columbus one gave us a plaque and some papers, because they thought, where can these live? Where can these be, appreciated? And they thought, oh, there's an Ohio Lesbian Archives in Cincinnati. So, we started becoming known.
So
what do you got?
There were several around the country. Like Phoebe said, I don't know. There were probably some in the 70s, a lot more in the 80s. I think there's a lot of them that sort of were called themselves feminist, but also attracted really big lesbian communities. And I think Crazy Ladies falls into that category. And sometimes it was like you had to know what it was to be able to find it, right? But there were definitely many scattered around. I know that there was something called the Lesbian Bookstore Project. I know that it was an Instagram project, and it might have had a website. I don't know if it's still active, but that was sort of an artist in the last few years who was like making art pieces and going to the locations of some of these. That was really cool. Somebody said Amazon Bookstore was the place to go in Minneapolis long before the Amazon books today.
Yeah. That was a big issue because I think they were going to sue, but the Amazon, of today was too big to. I think
they had a payout.
Did they? Is that what happened?
They did, which seemed like a lot of money at the time, and now it just seems a little bit. Anyway, on a brighter note, I wanted to say that there were a lot of lesbian feminist bookstores when I first started the magazine, but Women and Children First in Chicago just celebrated, I want to say, their 45th anniversary over the weekend. This weekend. Incredible. It's either 45 or 35, whatever it is. It's a long, let me look it up. It's 45 years. Incredible.
Wow. That is amazing.
Always still a good place to buy your books.
And I think that puts them at 79.
Yeah,
1979.
Yeah.
So
when Crazy Lady started, that rented location,
Almost like there
79.
was a movement going on or something.
Yeah, you think? Yeah, think? Mhm.
Do we have any other questions from the folks in the crowd? You can either unmute and say it out loud or write it in the chat, and I will say it for you.
I'm also dropping a link in the chat to, we've digitized some of our materials with Cincinnati Public Library. So,
right.
which I think we put in the same link.
Julia.
Oh, no, thank you, Julia, for reposting that. So that will take you to the Pride collection that they did a few years ago, all of their LGBTQ collections, some that are specifically about us. If you go to the Ohio Lesbian Archives link there, you can see some of the earliest issues of Dinah and some that sort of came from our collection from other organizations.
And the Cincinnati Public Library has a YouTube channel, and they've interviewed some of us elder activists, including me. I can't stand to watch it, but
you should.
several. Yeah, other people can. But yeah, Scott, Michael, Scott, some people that have been around a while.
Julia, I have a quick question. I am on a committee for our local our Wisconsin LGBT History Project, and I'm wondering if you guys do any scanning of documents and creating any kind of an electronic like history for the day when paper goes away and we just, everybody uses computers. I'm just curious how you guys are like handling that, because that seems to be the thing that we do here. Everything gets scanned.
That's a good idea. I know I've done we've had some pictures when people have asked for things, or people have come in here. I know, well, we had a book done, let's see, what's it called? GLBTQ. This guy did, Ken Schneck, GLBTQ Cleveland, GLBTQ Columbus, and he thought, oh, there's one more big city in Ohio, Cincinnati. And he came to the archives when we were in the church basement with a scanner. That's what made me think of it. And he was scanning, and of course, gave us a lot of credit. But it was right during COVID when his book came out, so he couldn't have a grand signing. But but scanning is definitely a way to go. But we have not done it as a big project or anything. Maybe we have.
No, the library does a little bit.
The library's digitizing stuff.
That's exciting. I know it is a lot of work to digitize collections. So yeah, and then to maintain them, exactly, because people aren't so aware sometimes that digital files also can degrade. So it also is the same thing, we have to take care of preservation for paper materials as well as digital materials. But BK, I'd love to talk to you more about the Wisconsin effort, because my family is from Milwaukee, so I go there often. But let's see. So Joan has another question. Were there clubs or bars in the early 70s for lesbians in Ohio? I know Clifton and Mount Adams, but had more open bars, but never heard of anything specifically for lesbians to meet.
Well, in Clifton, in the mid 70s and maybe into later 70s, it was known, people treated it as a lesbian bar, and the owner didn't argue about it. It was called, but it had a terrible sucky name, Adam's Rib. We thought, we hate it, but it's the only, most of us that was lesbian commune days, only one had a car and we could walk there. We thought, well, this is only, accessible place for us, and it's a lesbian bar. We adopted it as a lesbian. People started going, I don't know how it started, but it was, that was the one I remember. There weren't a lot that were just lesbians until later, maybe 90s, maybe late 80s.
What about Shea Joy? I know that was a little bit further outside
later
town.
Yeah, maybe 80s or 90s. I'd have to check, but 70s, it was pretty sparse.
But you still found places to go and made places to go.
That's true. Well, collating the latest Dinah issue, round and round the table and folding it and get them and ready to be in zip code order. That was exciting, but you never know who you'd meet, and it was kind of fun. It was one of the things to do. Well, and then when women's music, which was largely lesbian or bisexual, came to town, we had two different women's production companies. Jenny Edwards went to a technical school to learn how to do sound. She was that inspired, that motivated, and we could, they could come to University of Cincinnati. Back then it was women's studies before it got longer name, but we could use the singer could come to or musician could come to Crazy Ladies and meet people and sell their CD. And then they play maybe in a auditorium at the University of Cincinnati. So kind of had a setup there and get the word out. And Dinah would get the word out. Yeah.
Nice. So we had one last question before we close out because we're reaching the top of the hour. Just for reference, I popped into the chat a few links. We have, oops, sorry, I think I did this twice. The link to our Curve magazine archive, the link to the Curve Foundation, so you can see all of the other things that we're doing. If you haven't heard about what we do community gathering events like this. We have a book club, a film club. We have done a couple of in-person events celebrating archives and Curve magazine. And we always are welcoming donations. If you'd like to support us, I put the link in there. Folks from Olaf, please feel free to put your own links in there as well. And let's see. So Becky's got that last question. Becky from Cleveland here, lived in Cincinnati from 1981 to 1985. Yes, Adams Rib, right across from campus. Are you getting material from other parts of Ohio?
Some, yeah, it really, it depends what people give us, or they move in with a girlfriend, or we've had couples retire and move to Florida and they say, hey, do you want these old lesbian connection? That was very big, still going after the 70s. Oh, cute dog.
50 years.
50 years we're talking. It's a lesbian connection. So we'll get their books, they'll read a lesbian detective story or something, but share maybe with a few friends, and then like, well, who can we give these to? We don't want to just give them anywhere, or, so the archives. So people started thinking of the archives when they move either with a girlfriend and had to downscale or out of town.
Yeah, so we're sort of centered in Cincinnati, and that's like the community that we're really grounded in. And but we do get, things from all over Ohio, and we have things from outside of Ohio. Cincinnati's very close to both Kentucky and Indiana. We have things from both of those states. We have some things from Florida because we have a lot of people who have connections in Florida. So a little bit all over.
Yeah, we decided, especially lesbian periodicals and magazines and things like that, we decide as long as we have space, we will keep these because, the culture and just, beyond Cincinnati to bigger cities and just covering material or, material that we can't, that Dinah couldn't handle,
That makes sense. For example, Curve magazine.
For example, yes, that was a good example.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to close this out. Thank you so much to everyone who's attended. Thank you, Nancy and Phoebe, Avery and Franco, so much for sharing histories and stories. If you like this event, please go to our website and see about the other things that we're doing. We have a screening of what is Urvishi's documentary called, Franco? Do you remember what it's called? There's still work to do.
We've got work to do.
We've got work to do. That'll be December 11th. There is a recorded Q&A afterwards, and then we'll discuss it afterwards. That's our next thing that I'm really excited about. And we'll be doing some lesbian trivia. I don't want to say the date because I don't actually know. I haven't confirmed it. Anyways, thank you again to everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. So long to everyone.
Thanks for coming to Cincinnati.
Thank you all.
Thanks for having us. Bye.